Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is Praveen from Factors.ai. I'm one of the founders of Factors, and I take care of product and marketing at Factors. I'm very excited to have Aman, who works at LinkedIn, with me today to answer all questions that you have about LinkedIn ads. Let me first start with Aman. Why don't you give like a very brief introduction so that whilst people are just coming in.
Sure. So my name is Aman Gandhi. I've been with LinkedIn for about 2.5 years. I've been in the ad world for about 5 years now. At LinkedIn, I manage enterprise customers. I help them succeed on the platform from a marketing solutions perspective, which entails everything right from your paid strategy and your organic strategy. What should your creative look like? What objectives you should go after, etc. In general, I'm a huge marketing enthusiast. So that's something that really excites me and something that I want to contribute to the community on. And when Praveen asked me to do this, I was like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, thanks, Aman, for that. I mean, I'm sure you have a busy schedule, so thanks for taking the time out. The reason I wanted to, for everyone's benefit, we are planning to do this as a series. That's why we have named it LinkedIn AdVentures. Hopefully, every month, or maybe even every 2 weeks. What I plan to do is have a session with Aman. Both of us will come together and answer common questions that we see amongst our customers. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send it across to us, and we'll address either in this session itself or in the next session. For today, I've scheduled it for 30 minutes. We are slightly flexible on the time, so if there are questions, we can always go beyond that. And then, depending on how this goes, we can schedule longer sort of sessions as well. So, Aman, mostly the way I have structured today's conversation is I've split it into two sections. One is more strategy level questions of, given a specific context of a kind of company, how should they leverage LinkedIn ads is one class of questions. And the second one was more tactical, quick fire kind of questions on, what does this mean in LinkedIn, etc. Right? And in every session, we'll
Absolutely.
try to stick to the same format, so that we do answer very tactical sort of questions so that people can act on it then and there, as well as some sort of strategy level questions as well, right? Now,
Yep, let's do it.
yeah. So from a strategy level, what I picked up today is, so a lot of our customers. So at Factors, we work with around 500 customers currently. A good majority of them are early stage companies, right? So I'd say at least around 50% of our customers are single digit million, right? So like just crossed a million to just about like 8-9 million and kind of scaling. So that's a very good chunk of our customer base. Uh, for most of them, the initial sort of scale would have happened through a mix of channels like outbound, founders network, investor connects, maybe like sort of search, like high intent sort of conversions from paid search, etc. And they're just about kind of starting out on LinkedIn, right? So they've kind of exhausted. So what typically happens is you would exhaust all these channels by the time you are like around 5 million, and you need to kind of add more growth channels, which is when you really start looking at LinkedIn and other platforms to kind of scale, right? And for the sake of
Yeah.
conversation, let's also assume that this company is selling like a product with around 20K sort of ACV, right? Now,
Got it. Yeah.
how do you recommend that they should start out on LinkedIn? Like, what would be a strategy that you would recommend to a company like this, just testing it out? How should they think about this? Like, how much budget should they carve out? What's the time frame that they should look at? So, if you can just lay out that strategy, I think that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for setting up the context. However, I would still say that it depends. If you are only
Mm,
talking about revenue outcomes, obviously there's a very clear path, but different companies would have different goals when they hit that $5 million odd mark, because that is also around the time when you would also want to start thinking about raising funds, etc. So, two things that you should start to think about before you think about how you do the platform is, what do you want to achieve from the platform in the short term, the midterm, and the long term, and what sort of sales cycles that you have. Now, the reason why these
Okay.
two are important is because these two will sort of form the pillar of how you would think about the platform. Considering these are companies who would be in that 1 to 10 million sort of a range, they would definitely have a content engine for them, which means they are already on the platform, leveraging it organically, maybe have employees posting about them, or they themselves posting quite a bit of stuff on their page, maybe just to drive employer interest, for example, or to be an evangelist in their industry or their sub industry that want to champion. In our example, particularly Praveen, if I have to speak about it, let's assume that this is a company who is purely focused on driving incremental revenues. One,
Hmm.
and they have, which I typically see today in the software business world, they have a sales cycle of anywhere between 3 to 4 months. Right now,
Hmm.
considering this, the first thing that I would recommend them to think about is take LinkedIn for a 6 to 8 months time period as an experiment to run, because that is when your results will actually start showing up and not earlier. Of course, you can think about a few leading indicators here, like brand recall, etc., that you can measure. But if pure revenue outcome, you probably start seeing it roll in after that fifth or the 6th month. So that is how I would think about it. In terms of how do you do it on LinkedIn, actually is obviously you first define your ICP. The way to do this is again to look at your existing customer list and identify who's your actual buyer versus who is the influencer. Then obviously look at the traffic that you're driving to your landing pages. The way to do this is very simple. You just need to install the LinkedIn Insight tag on all your landing pages and figure out via demographic section within the campaign manager tool, who are these audiences who are really coming to your website, right? And obviously segregate your landing pages into different sections. Some could be educational, some could be conversion focused, and depending on who is visiting what, build up these personas so that you can sort of build a nurture flow on them via your paid program, while your organic program continues to do whatever it is doing, and then start some level of thought leadership and brand evangelism on top. So that's how I would largely structure it.
Got it. So just to recap what you said, so you're saying if your sales cycle is roughly around, let's say, 3 to 4 months, you should, in terms of the plan for LinkedIn, rather than doing like let me try LinkedIn for 1 month or 2 months, you should actually say, okay, I'm going to invest into this channel for the next 6 to 8 months, right? Which is
Yeah,
roughly 2 times your average sales cycle is what you should look at as the time period
yeah,
that you're investing into LinkedIn. And that is when you will get like a good sense of ROI. Anything less than that, you may be kind of misled in terms of the numbers that you might be seeing, right? And then you
absolutely.
said the lowest hanging fruit is install the website tag, the LinkedIn Insight tag that automatically detects all the users who are visiting the website. If they've also logged into LinkedIn from the same browser, LinkedIn would be able to map that. So use LinkedIn as a nurture channel. And by the time you are hitting this 5 million number, presumably you have enough traffic so that you would cross the 300 member
Yeah,
threshold that LinkedIn has from
yeah,
in terms of running a campaign. And even on top of Insight Tag, you're saying apply some ICP filters in terms of both firmographic criteria and job title criteria in terms of what is it that really matters to you, and then start with LinkedIn as a nurture channel for existing sort of users who are already aware about you, and use LinkedIn that way to start with. Now, you also
yeah.
mentioned towards the end that you then also kind of scale up the investment into brand and thought leadership, right? Can you elaborate on that? Like typically, because brand and thought leadership can be many things, right? It could be content which is like a, let's say, a Gartner Forrester report type content, or it could be founder stories. It could be various things that you could invest in. What have you seen work best in terms of brand and thought leadership content?
Absolutely. So, in terms of brand and thought leadership content, and I keep saying this to everyone that I meet and who wants to do LinkedIn, is that you need to have 2 or 3 tracks. First track has to be your company's brand. Second track has to be your founder or your employee's brand, and third track has to be your product sort of a brand, or thought leadership sort of a brand of the concept that you're trying to really speak about, or the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And each of these need to work in on both rails, both paid and organic, because together they will be able to drive you a lot of impact. I'll take an example. I'll take your example actually, if that's okay, Praveen. Uh, a lot of
Sure.
your traffic, I'm sure, today gets driven by the things that you post, or that the things that Shri Krishna posts, right? And because you leave URLs within your post, I'm sure a lot of traffic that is being driven to your landing pages is from this audience. All the lives that you do, either from your profiles or from company profiles, drive a lot of interest for your brand. And I'm sure this comes up in conversations for you as well with your prospects, that hey, yes, we know about you because we've seen either your live or your post or your employees post on my feed, and hence that there's some amount of recall there. So these two absolutely matter a lot. The third thing that I've seen recently happen and drive a lot of traction is partner or UGC sort of a content. And a
Hmm.
company like Clay has done this brilliantly, where they are encouraging, so to speak, SDRs, or their partner companies, or the partners who are leveraging Clay, to post about themselves and be incentivized. That content is also doing pretty well. Obviously, it helps that that field is very hot right now. So largely, these are the type of things from an organic perspective that I think will help a lot. Paid here acts like fuel to the fire, because as a founder story, for example, you're already publishing good content. You have some amount of audience who's already linked to you. But when you start targeting audiences who matter to you with that content, it really amplifies the impact that only your organic presence would have, because organic is limited to people who will follow you or people who are going to be in your network. Paid will sort of help you extend that beyond that small audience and help you grow beyond that small audience, so that in the future, if you've acquired that audience to be a follower of your profile or follower of your company page, you do not have to spend that dollar to put your message in front of the audience.
Got it. So again, just to recap what you said, so you mentioned three kinds of, or four kinds of actually strategies here. So one is the company brand, founder brand, some sort of thought leadership content in terms of what is the change that you're driving as a company, what is the sort of
Yeah,
big problem that you're solving, what is the thesis, which hopefully is slightly counterintuitive, so that it interests people as well, as to
yeah,
it gets their curiosity. And the third thing that you said is community related content, right? So having your users post about you, something like what Clay has done, right? Now, which of these are so all of this you're saying you can do organically, so you can do it organically in terms of employee posts, etc., and then you kind of add
yeah,
paid as a channel to spread that beyond your immediate network, and kind of go beyond that, right? Got it,
yeah,
understood. Now, in terms of organic investment, right? So one problem that I have seen with not a problem, one observation I have with a lot of companies is that they're doing LinkedIn purely from a paid perspective. Like organic investment is at best a company handle which posts some, let's say there's an ebook or something like that. But it's very minimal in terms of like the organic sort of story, and it is largely a paid story, right? What would be your advice to these companies to say, why is organic even important? Like, it is an advertising platform. It is not an advertising platform, it is a social platform, but it has a very strong advertising layer. Why should anyone do beyond advertising alone?
absolutely. See, when you do organic content, right, I mean, obviously the company organic content and the individual organic content differ in terms of the nature of the content and how it gets, fed onto the feed and how it reaches its followers. If you think about, take a step back and think about it, right, would you really want to be interested in something that has a company generic name written on it, or would you be interested in something that has some person's name written on it, maybe that that person, or you've heard of that person in passing, or one of your friends has mentioned, hey, this guy posts something great. So because of that authenticity that comes into content on the platform, when it is being posted organically, especially by an individual, the value of that content increases a lot, right? And when you think
Hmm.
about it, like, again, from a 30,000 feet sort of a view, something that I would post, my friend is more likely to repost than something that a company as posted, and then people trying to repost it. Of course, there are outliers. There's content which is so great that people end up reposting it by themselves. However, this is something that I've seen quite a bit, where individuals posts get a lot more love than companies post. That does not mean that you do not give love to your company's posting as well. And there are some tactics that you can use to sort of promote that as well via requesting your employees to repost it. However, the reason why organic content is important is, while yes, you invest in paid and you get a lot of impressions from paid and you get traction from paid, the audience who's going to get your content consistently is the audience who's following your company page, and hence the audience is going to consume your content organically. And if you're able to build that audience as a subset of your ICP, it means this is audience who's relevant to your business, who might not be a buyer today, but will be a buyer in the future, or an influencer in the future, and hence having a touch point with them is very, very important to you. So
Got
organic
it.
is definitely very important, as
So when
as
you are engaging
important
with,
as paid.
got it. So when you are engaging with customers, right? So what would you recommend to them, saying, hey, you should target, let's say, hitting so many followers on the company handle or on the key employees handle? Is that something that you discuss with the marketers that you engage with?
Yeah, we definitely discussed this quite a bit, in fact. And I've been lucky enough to work with companies who have a large organic team and who has a one-person organic team. So I can tell you it's a lot of effort. However, the thumb rules that I generally end up suggesting is, look at your ICP in the market that you are going after currently, and don't just look at the people who are going to use your product, but also your buyers and your influencers, and try to gain, let's say 0.1 to 1% of that audience as a follower subset to your content at least, because that is where your network, your content will then start amplifying, because these are people who are contextually related to your brand and your product. So they are by definition inclined to look at your content. So that is the sort of follower sort of account that I would want people to aim for to begin with. But then, like, as it grows and as you start acquiring new markets and you diversify your product line, those numbers will keep changing and keep becoming bigger.
Got it. So you're saying the benchmark is in the market. So for example, again, making it very tactical, let's say if I take factors, let's say the primary market is the US, and we are targeting, let's say, demand generation managers and ABM marketers, right? And let's say when I check on LinkedIn for that audience, which is these job titles in the US, hypothetically, let's presume there are 100,000 sort of users who meet that criteria. Now, what you're targeting is between your personal profile and company profile, you should target getting at 0.1 to 1%, right? So if I take 1% as the number, 1,000 followers from that particular segment at the minimum, so that your content then is always seen by these 1,000 people, and if they like or comment, it goes to their network, which is again going to be these the 100,000 sort of users that you really want to, members that you really want to reach out to. So for everyone, like, get to 1% of your ICP as followers of the company handle, founder's profile, key employees, etc. That would be like a good benchmark, and then kind of scale it up from there, right? What do you has there been any paid programs to kind of actually help with this, or like the whole increasing the followership presence, or that has to be done like organically mostly?
Not really. So on LinkedIn, you can use paid strategies to grow your followers as well. We have an ad format called the follower ads, which is a subtype of the spotlight ads, which are designed to help you gain followers. These ads show up in the right trail whenever you log into LinkedIn, and there's a follow button that pops in just below the ad if you're not a follower of that company already, which people then can click on, become followers. The other way is the engagement objective on the CMT, which by definition, if the user is not already a follower of your page, will have a follow button on the top right of the content post. So again, incentivizing audiences to follow. And because while you're doing paid, you will have 100% control on whom these impressions will be showed. You can be rest assured that this will be your ICP when they decide to follow you.
Got it. So only for so one is the follower ads, which is sort of like text or spotlight ads, and the other is only for the engagement objective. You're saying follow comes up as like a primary CTA.
No, so it
Right.
is a secondary CTA because it appears
Okay.
on the top line right next to where your company page or your uh, thought leader's name would pop in. Your primary CTA will still be below the creative.
Understood. So follow becomes like a secondary CTA, and that is another way to kind of drive more followers and get to that 1% sort of number. The best performing companies that you've seen, for them, is this like substantially higher than 1%, like in your portfolio that you look at?
Absolutely. I would say for the best performing companies, it's around right now, it is around the 10% mark. If I were to
Okay.
be give it a ballpark, obviously that is not enough, and they would want to gain more, and that's something that I do help them with on a regular basis. But once you hit those larger numbers, right, you have to also start thinking about, hey, what are the other ways I can do this? So a lot of them have now started doing things like newsletters, LinkedIn Lives, like the
Hmm.
way you do, to drive this traffic to the landing page and then get people to follow them. Because after a point, you obviously have to think about your other objectives as well that you want to drive via that company page.
Got it. Understood. Now, just recapping this section, and after this, we'll take one question that has come up, and then go to the quick fire sort of section. So you're saying start with using LinkedIn as a nurture channel. Install the insight tag on your key pages, landing pages, product pages, etc. That audience feeds into LinkedIn. Apply your filters on job titles and firmographic criteria, and start using LinkedIn as a nurture channel. Keep a time frame of at least 2 times your sales cycle to evaluate the effectiveness of your efforts, rather than trying it for a month and seeing, or saying that, nothing has kind of come through or something like that. In addition to the paid effort, what you're saying is start the organic effort as well, and you should keep a benchmark of company followers plus key employee followers should hit 1% of your ICP in the market that you care about, which is still like a pretty tall task, right? Like if you have a ICP of
It
around
is.
100,000 to 200,000 members, you're looking at least 2,000 followers at the bare minimum, right? You can again use paid channels like follow ads or the engagement objective, which has follow as a secondary CTA to drive your organic effort. And once you've done this, what you recommend is then get into brand awareness or thought leadership ads, promoting the founder brand, the company brand, key product proposition. And if you can do influencer or community related content, like what Clay does, then that's the other sort of trend that you're seeing. Now,
Yeah.
let me take this
Sorry,
question
Praveen, I
to
want
a
to add one more
yeah,
thing, if that's okay.
yeah, yeah,
With your
please.
insight tag, you can actually also understand the audience who's looking at your pages from a firmographics and a demographics perspective. So even before you start using retargeting, you can understand, I think marketing managers are coming to my landing page X. However, you find out that it's not just marketing, but product professionals are also coming there. So maybe there's an unexplored audience there, which you're not probably thinking about, that you would also want to then add. So those sub insights would also be something that you should be on a lookout for when you install insight tags and start looking at those audiences on the platform.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. So even in terms of just discovering that ICP and variants of people who are really interested in your product and reading like core product related content, you can use the insight tag and the reporting around that in Campaign Manager to understand that better. So
Yep.
the question we have here is, if you operate in a niche market but is relevant to LinkedIn as a platform targeting working professionals, how do we get leads for such a niche market, like professional programs? Should a LinkedIn ad campaign be run continuously to achieve desired results, or are there alternate approaches to consider? Right. I actually didn't fully understand this question. What
Yeah.
I understood is that if it is a very niche market, what strategies should someone pursue? And also, I think as a follow-on, I mean, like there's always this question of, should I just focus on getting leads, or when I'm starting a paid program on LinkedIn, should I just focus on getting leads, run like some lead gen sort of content, or is there a different way to kind of leverage the platform better, right? So maybe we can kind of talk to that as well, in addition to addressing the niche sort of problem. I didn't understand the specific niche that Pranay is asking about. So Pranay, if you want to clarify that in the meanwhile, that would be great as well.
Sure. So, I mean, see, as long as you're meeting platform benchmarks, right? What I mean by benchmarks here is there's a minimum threshold of audience that you require to run a paid program, which is 300, and there's a minimum threshold that I would always suggest, which is around the 5,000 mark. If your audience is above 5,000 on the platform, you should definitely be leveraging paid channels. In terms of, do we only do leads, or do you diversify and look at other objectives and strategies? I think, I mean, instead of just thinking about how this is how what I will use the platform for, the question we need to ask is, what is the challenge that I want to solve? Now,
Mm.
if I had to talk specifically about leads, if you're, let's say your IC your audience is 10,000 people, there will be a point beyond which you will not be able to generate leads, simply because your costs will give you diminishing returns. So definitely, just generating leads is not the answer. I think, again, in all things business, you have to think about it from a long term perspective, and you have to say, okay, any given point in time, I'm going to probably capture 1% or 2%. Thank you for clarifying, Pranay, and I'll just get to that in just 1 second. 1%, 2%, 3% of my audience is whom I'm going to capture, and then probably convert about 10% of that, which means that I can't have an always on lead gen running, and I should be focusing on how do I ensure that I'm in front of my audience all the time, so that when they are ready to convert, my right message is there to get them to convert with me rather than my competitor or my peer. That is how I would
Mm.
think about it, and it will differ, right, for different types of companies. For example, in Pranay's example, because these are, from what I understand, these are education programs in leadership, finance, etc., for managers,
Mm.
etc. Um, his goal, I mean, I'm sure these are programs which have high ACV, and not everyone can afford them. So it is a manager who's going to take the choice, but it is just that individual person who's going to make that choice. So if you want to find an alternative nurture sim, and you should definitely do that. But on LinkedIn, you should continue to do that as well, so that whenever they are ready, you are also there to ensure that they are going to that conversion page that you have and converting from there, and then obviously you assist them with the sales process as well.
Got it. So
Does
you're
that?
saying, did I hear you right in terms of saying you should focus on the actual user and probably their managers as well, in terms of if these are corporate programs which corporates can fund?
So if there are corporate programs, are we of absolutely users and managers? But I
Mm.
mean, today tech also has a lot of individual users taking the programs themselves. So you focus on them as
Mm.
well.
Got it. Understood. Understood. And you're saying you can always try lead gen, but at some point, let's say for the specific program that you're targeting, if there are 10,000 or 50,000 people who qualify as like a good fit that you'd be targeting, at some point you will hit diminishing returns if you only run lead gen. So what you're
Yeah.
recommending is have a two-pronged strategy, have a lead gen campaign, which will capture a few hundred people who are currently sort of likely to buy that particular program, and then have a separate campaign to drive the awareness amongst the entire 50,000 that these programs exist, so that when they are ready to buy, they'll think about you.
Yeah.
Got it. Understood. Now, Aman, moving on to the quick fire sort of section, right? I just wanted to ask like a few very quick questions, very tactical as well.
Sure.
So we'll keep it short, but first one, how is campaign quality score calculated? What and how is it important?
Absolutely. For people who don't know campaign quality score, you can see your campaign quality score as well on the CMT by exporting a performance report. Campaigns quality score is a mixture of a multitude of factors which define how good or bad your campaign is, and the reason why it is important is because it will determine where in that feed placement your content will show up. Like I said, there are a lot of factors, but three factors under our control that I would want to call out here is factor number one, the context of your content. What that basically means is, if your content is about marketing, is your targeting also about marketing, or or is it way off? Are you targeting operationals, professionals? Point number two is obviously your bid amount, because this is an auction environment at the end of the day. And point three is your quality of content. Are you saying something which is very generic or very not on point, or are you saying something which is very specific to that cohort? Is this content hot? For example, AI is a content which has been hot for the past 1.5 years, right? Is it speaking about AI which is relevant to that marketing professional in my example or not? These are three primary factors that you can control in terms of campaign quality score. And if all of these three come together, you will have a very high campaign quality score. Typically, it is between 1 to 10. So obviously, you should aim for a higher number between 7 to 10. 10 obviously is very difficult to achieve. But something like an 8 or 9 would be an amazing campaign quality score for you, and your campaign will deliver results for sure.
And would it be fair to presume that the way LinkedIn would determine whether the content is really appealing is based on the level of engagement? Like the engagement is like a proxy for, is the content like really interesting, or is there other ways for LinkedIn to kind of assess that?
I mean, that is one of the factors. The second one, like I said, is how relevant or prevalent that topic is at the moment and to that audience. Largely,
Okay,
these two
got it.
factors, and obviously things like, is this the right audience for it? Have they engaged with this content in the past and stuff like that?
Got it. And you're saying the higher the campaign quality score, the earlier in the feed you will get like a result. It affects your
Yeah,
position in the feed.
it affects their
Understood.
positioning for sure.
Got it. Understood. Second one, how is predictive audiences different from lookalike audiences?
I love this question because I get this a lot. Firstly, predictive audiences lookalike audiences, apologies, have been sunset as of end of
Mm,
February. So you cannot really use lookalike audiences anymore. We have predictive
mm,
audiences, which basically is a better version of lookalike audiences, and you have more control on it. For
mm,
people who would have used lookalike audiences in the past, you couldn't really control the size of audience that you could generate out of it. Now you can. It's basically like a
mm.
slider where you increase the likelihood. And the key difference between lookalike and predictive audiences is that our systems have become better at generating those audiences for you. So a lot of LinkedIn magic goes into generating those predictive audiences. And because these audiences are being created from a seed list, which is very restrictive, either someone from your landing page, a contact list that matters to you, or from a lead gen form that you're running on the platform. It means because of the base audience being very relevant, LinkedIn is working very hard to ensure that the predictive audience on top of it is also very relevant to you.
Got it. So basically, you have control over the audience size, and because the seed list is like very relevant, the enhanced list also becomes relevant. And you're saying the overall algorithms that LinkedIn employs to find these predictive audiences have also kind of improved over time. That is
Yeah.
why. And at what scale would you recommend that someone should use predictive audiences? So if I have like a audience size of maybe like 50,000, maybe I don't need predictive audiences as much, or how do you actually think about that?
It depends on what objective you want to achieve. Let's say your objective is to
Okay.
build brand awareness. Then even that 50,000 audience scale is not enough for you, right? You would want to go beyond that. In
Mm,
that case, 100% predictive audience will help you because, again, the relevance factors in when you use predictive audience. But on the other side of the picture, right, let's say you want to drive very focused conversion based messaging on audiences who have already visited a specific landing page on your website. Then you probably do not require predictive audiences because these are audiences who are maybe somewhere in your buying process and already are engaged with your content. So you really do not need to go beyond this audience because the messaging that you will do on this audience is not the messaging that you would want to do beyond this audience, right?
got it. Understood. 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 Okay. Now the next question I had is one thing that keeps coming up is on location targeting. There seems to be two options, which is show recent or permanent location, right? Again, how do you advise clients to use this? Why are there these two options in the first place? Yeah.
Sure. So there are two options because many a times, and something that probably Praveen you do yourself is a lot of these professionals travel across regions,
Mm,
and a lot of times they are relevant to you. Sometimes they are not relevant to you as well, of course. So depending on the relevance of this audience, we recommend using this recent or permanent or just permanent. A good example would be someone doing an offline event in Bangalore. Let's say that there's an event that's happening 5 days from now, and you're promoting that event, and it's a large scale event, you would not just want the people who are in Bangalore and living here as a resident to be coming to that event, but also these people who are coming from outside but are in the location at that point in time, and you want them to be a part of your event. That is when recent or permanent helps. But when you're doing like a focus targeting, or when you're doing other objectives, is when I generally recommend permanent, because permanent is basically people who are from that place and who basically have given us a lot of location pings from that place. Permanent or recent is basically people also giving us location signals from other locations, from their base location, so to speak.
Got it. And ballpark, what do you think would be the difference in audience size between these two? Is it like significant or?
Not significant. It would not be significant. It's a recency factor more than audience size factor here.
Got it. I'll just ask one final question, Aman, and then we'll probably end the day. So one thing that keeps coming up is that if your ads are more engaging, like your CTRs are higher, then LinkedIn kind of rewards you by the CPMs actually kind of going down for you, right? One, is that true? And secondly, how does that work? What kind of benchmarks would you say to say you should try and get like a CTR of so much for you to get the advantage of the platform from a cost perspective? So yeah, if you can just talk to that entire CTR CPM sort of interplay, that would be great.
Sure. I want to start off by saying we definitely would love audience to create content which has very high CTR, because that means that your content is relevant, engaging, and people want to know either more about you or the product or the content that you have posted. So 100% aim for having higher CTRs. How do they relate to CPM and overall cost on the platform? And obviously, if the content has high CTR, the platform will try to push it higher and higher because people are engaging with it. So it's sort of a network effect. Um, does not necessarily mean that you will have cost advantages with CPMs, because CPMs also depend on the audience size you are going after. Taking a classic example of retargeting versus an open or a native campaign, right? A retargeting campaign would probably have a smaller audience size of, let's say, 3,000-4,000. Now here, because your content is very context relevant to those 4,000 people, you will have a high CTR. However, because this audience is comparatively more difficult to find than an open campaign, which would have, let's say, 50,000 or 100,000 audience, you will have to compete more in that auction pool to capture those audiences, right? So from that perspective, CPMs, despite a high CTR will be higher. So CPM is not just a factor of CTR; it is also a factor of the audience size that you're going after. Let's say, for example, you are doing a large-scale brand play on the platform, and your audience is to the tune of 3-4 million. Hopefully, someday you have a consumer product which does that. You will definitely get much better CPMs than what you'll be getting today, because today your audience is about 50,000, and these 50,000 are the only people that you really care about. So CTR might have a small factor to play in your CPM, if I have to summarize this, but it is more the audience size.
Got it. So the audience size is the primary sort of factor. Now, if the audience size for
and just to apologies to bring this home, audience size, content relevant to context, and then CTRs.
Got it. But let's say if audience size remains the same for two campaigns and one has relatively higher CTR, then you would expect the CPM for that to probably kind of be slightly
100%.
lower. Got it. And again, like what is a good CTR benchmark to kind of keep in mind?
That's a very tough question to answer, because CTR will change with, like, CTR benchmark would change with the objective and the ad format that you're running. In general, because banner ads are the ones which are run most on the platform, generally a good or a decent CTR to think about is around 0.45% on the platform, because that would be something that is achievable, but yet a brilliant CTR to have for the platform. So that's what I would suggest people to think about in terms of CTR when they're starting out on the platform.
Got it. So aspirationally, you should try to hit 0.5% or more, but 0.4 to 0.45% is what you typically see. Any sort of anything that you've seen work to kind of push up that number to like 0.7, 0.8, like anything that you can remember from your memory, like one campaign from this one advertiser? And again, I'm not talking about the retargeting audience piece, which I understand, right? Like retargeting audience, generally your CTR would be higher. But if you're doing native cold targeting, have you seen somebody execute it so differently or well that it actually engaged?
One tactic, and I mean this is probably the cheat sheet right here, is put out content which is relevant to that particular period in time, or that particular
Mm,
an event happening in that time period. That
mm,
generally, even for an open campaign, drives a very high CTR. A good example would be Halloween, for example, in the US market. If your content is around Halloween, but still the theme that your product or your company brand drives, that I have seen perform very well, and of course have very, very, very high quality creatives. I can't say this enough. A high quality creative will always receive more attention than a low quality creative.
understood. So basically, keep it contextual to something that's happening at that time of the year, and secondly, focus on getting your getting good, very good quality creatives. Both of this should help you drive more CTRs, and all other factors remaining the same, such as your audience size and ad format, etc. A campaign which has higher CTR probably on a CPM basis costs you slightly lower than another one, right? So if you
Yeah.
want to drive some cost advantage on the platform, then focus on creatives and focus on some timely sort of messaging. Cool. I think we have overstepped by 10 minutes, but I think that's a good place to end today's session, Aman. And as I said, folks, we plan to do this once every 2 weeks or once every month. So if you have any questions, Aman is as much of an expert as we can get on LinkedIn. There isn't anybody that I know who understands LinkedIn better. So feel free to drop your questions here, and I hopefully we'll host another session in September as well, and happy to answer all your questions as well. Feel free to DM either me or connect with Aman or myself, and let us know your questions for the next session. All right. Thanks, Aman. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yep. Thank you so much, Praveen. Happy to share and help wherever possible. I'm excited to be a part of this series. I think it's going to be very helpful to people who really want to drive a lot of impact on the platform.
Definitely. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. Yep. Bye bye.